All right.
All right. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the August 26th midday meeting of the Rotary Club of Rochester. I'm Audrey Betcher, the president of your club. To get things started, Bill Whipter will lead us in the four-way test.
You have to hold it closer to your face.
I need it closer. Okay.
Okay.
Wait, what are you doing?
All Rotarians, if they want to join us, or you want me to go up there?
You gotta get up here. Be cheap
That'll be
back
better
there.
for the people online.
Okay. So I have to look over at my shoulder.
Yeah.
Okay, all Rotarians, if you want to join me in the four-way test of the things we think, say, and do. First, is it the truth? Second, is it fair to all concerned? Third, will it be beneficial? Will it be beneficial to all concerned? And I did that on purpose because Chris Colby put me on the spot several months ago, and I muffed it then. So I thought I would do a
Nice
encore.
recovery.
Yep.
Nice recovery.
Thank you, Bill. I love it. As someone else who also muffed the four-way test, I can appreciate that. So I have a short reflection for us today. That we are all so, this is a quote from Amit Ray. We are all so deeply interconnected. We have no option but
Get your
to
mouth in there.
get my mouth in there. Sorry. Okay. We are all so deeply connected. We have no option but to love all. Be kind and do good for anyone, and that will be reflected. The ripples of the kind heart are the highest blessings of the universe. That's our for today. All right. Do we have any visitors today? Any visitors? Okay.
I'm a visitor, I guess. I'm Julie Ponto.
Oh, Julie, welcome. Welcome.
Thank you. Yeah, glad to be here.
We will do your introduction a little bit later.
No
Thank you.
worries. Thank you.
All right, birthdays and anniversaries. On the 27th, we have Merlin Ripcliffs for birthday and Melanie Shida. And for anniversaries, we have Amy Holtz is at 7 years, Terry Sorensen is at 11 years, Paul T. Scotter, 13 years, Stacy Vanden Heuvel, 20 years, Mark Murch, 24 years, and Frank Charbrough, 38 years. Let's wish happy birthdays and anniversaries. At this point, I'm going to turn it over to Mark.
Okay, thank you. So on behalf of our Rotary Club Foundation, we're very excited today to make an announcement that we are awarding the very first Community Grant Award. And I can't see, but I'm hoping that Diane is in the audience. Audrey, are you able to confirm she's sitting there?
He is here.
Okay, awesome. So earlier this year, your foundation internalized a lot of the feedback that we got from our members. And we said, hey, we'd like to see more giving going back to the community in which we live and serve. So the foundation took that to heart. We developed the Community Award, and this year is the inaugural year, and with the intent that each year we will come back and offer this opportunity for active members of our club to be able to send in applications to find great service opportunities here in our community. So this year, I'd like to congratulate the award to go to Diane for her leadership and her application for Strive. So if we can all have a round of applause to congratulate her. Now, Diane should be aware, I hope she's there. Oh, it looks like maybe there's a movement happening. Does she have a couple words for us?
Couple. Always have a couple. Principal, you know.
Well, I would like to thank the Rotary Club of Rochester Community Foundation for awarding Strive this year's Community Grant Award. The Strive program appreciates the support of the members of the board, and the Rotary Club of Rochester members support both financial funding and volunteering to be mentors to the students. I will be a part of Strive this year as a consultant. And I would like to thank Michaela Schmidt for stepping up to be the facilitator at the Rochester Area Learning Center and to be on the Strive steering committee representing our club. For those of you that are planning or considering mentoring this year, we are looking at starting in October. And that's what we did last year. And facilitators will be reaching out soon to give you more information. And it's because of the changing COVID procedures that have been a challenge for the program, but we believe also has strengthened the program in several different ways. Again, thank you for supporting the Strive program and stay tuned for updates on the impact of this funding, which has success within the program. Thank you.
All right, now I'm going to turn it over to Tamsin.
Hello, everyone. Just a really quick announcement about the Rotary Golf outing. It is scheduled at Northern Hills Golf Club, not Northern Valley, as maybe I put out there before. Northern Hills, which is in Northwest Rochester off of West Circle Drive on September the 16th. It's a Thursday. We'll meet for lunch at Northern Hills at noon. Tea times are going to start at 1 o'clock for anyone who wants to golf. And if you're not able to join us for lunch or golf, but want to join us for happy hour, we think about 4:30 we should be done golfing and would love to see you for happy hour. Registration is open for all of the above. Well, not happy hour. Registration is open for lunch and for golf. Happy hour is just come. Registration is open for golf and for lunch. For both things, you just pay the day of. I tried to cut Rotary out of the middle of it, and we could just pay directly at Northern Hills on the day of for golf and for lunch, but we do need you to pre-register so we can plan accordingly. A note for signing up about golf, go ahead and sign up and don't worry about what time you're signing up for. Just sign up, and once we get all of the people who are signed up, we'll go ahead and make the teams. If you have someone specific that you want to golf with, whether it's a twosome, foursome, threesome, whatever, send me a note. And that way we will make the teams based on your preferences, but don't go by what's on the website for teams, please, because it's a little confusing. Cool. Everybody sign up. It'll be a super fun day. Even if you're not a good golfer, we'll play best ball or something. It'll be fine. Questions?
Anybody have questions? Colin does.
Can you hear me?
I'll repeat it.
Kind of. Yep.
If I can play golf on that day, anybody can play.
I'll second that.
Yes.
Yeah. Bring your friends, bring prospective members, bring your family, bring anyone. We just want to get as many people there as we can for a great day of fun and fellowship.
Yep. Okay. Thank you, Tamsin.
Yeah.
So I have an announcement about third Thursdays. So we're going to keep the small group format, but it is changing. What will happen is starting in October, we will have 4 groups each month. So there'll be a service group that will work with community partners to find volunteer opportunities. There will be a learning group, you'll learn something new, or you'll have an opportunity to share your interests. We will continue to have a virtual option for anybody, and this again could be a book group, could be a TED Talk, could be lots of different things. And then there will be a group that its purpose is to socialize. So the host will pick a restaurant or a location if it's a brown bag. And so every month there will be 4 different options. So you'll get to be with a small group on that third Thursday. And we're seeking a small group to lead this effort. So the lead group will be responsible for finding volunteers to lead those 4 groups every month. I want to give a shout out for Christine, who's already volunteered to help. And so if you would like to help with this third Thursday initiative, I'd love to have you sign up or just talk to me. Send me an email or talk to me anytime, and we'll get that going with it starting in October, because our third Thursday is, or or third Thursday in September is our golf outing, so that's why we're starting in October. And we're gonna have signups. You'll be able to sign up ahead because there will be, some groups will have limits. You know, we're not gonna take 20 people for a lunch. So we're gonna, and the topics and hosts will change monthly. And so when you're asked to, or when you volunteer, you're not making a long-term commitment. You're only committing for that month. So, and then what I'm hoping is that on the second Thursday of the month at our regular meeting, the host for the third Thursday will make a pitch for why you should come and participate in their group. But I'm really looking forward to trying this new iteration of small groups on their third Thursdays. And we'll adjust if we need 5 groups, or, you know, we'll figure it out. And so contact me for more information, and we're looking forward to getting to keep getting to know each other better in our smaller groups. So that's what's happening with third Thursdays. Any questions on that? And I really also want to thank the conveners who hosted from January until now. Really, it's been absolutely amazing, the work, and from the survey, we used the surveys that we did back in April to kind of create this next iteration, and feedback from the conveners. So we really do appreciate the leadership of all the conveners who helped in that process.
Audrey, is there going, this is Judy O'Fallon on Zoom. Will any of these have a Zoom option? Any of these 4 groups?
Yes, we will always have a Zoom option.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. Yep. Great. All right, a couple more recruitment announcements. I had mentioned last time at the board approved, or there's 3 club initiatives. We have 2 that we are recruiting for. Anyone who is interested in working on the Cradle to Career 3 club initiative, please reach out to me. That's the educational to close educational gaps. Marilyn Delling has already volunteered, so I'm looking for a couple more people to participate on that. So thank you, Marilyn, for being part of that. And we're also recruiting for a 3 club initiative for diversity, equity, and inclusion. So we know we all need to get better at diversity, equity, and inclusion. And so we're working on that together with the other 2 clubs. So I'm also looking for people who are willing to participate in a 3 club committee to figure out how we do that, how we work together. So those are also other opportunities to serve. We have found that the first Thursday Rotary After Hours has not been generating much interest, and so we are going to cancel that for September 2nd. The board is actually going to be talking about that at our September 2nd meeting, and expect some changes going forward. Don't know exactly what that's going to look like, but that will likely change as well. We will be back here at our next meeting, I think September 9th. I didn't write it down. I didn't write the date down. And our speaker will be Kent Pacall, the interim superintendent of the Rochester Public Schools, with a presentation where we are today and where we can and should go tomorrow. So look forward to that. Any other announcements before we go to our speaker?
Just want to add, for the golf outing that day, please sign up at least a week in advance so we can have that last week to plan. So please, if you can attend that day, please try to sign up at least by the week before. Thanks.
Okay, thank you, Tamsin. All right. Dr. Julie Ponto is professor and program coordinator for the Adult Gerontology Clinical Nurse Specialist Program at Winona State University in Rochester, where she teaches graduate nursing courses and advises students, master's theses, and doctoral clinical practice projects. Dr. Ponto received a master's degree from the University of California, San Francisco, and a PhD from the University of Utah. Dr. Ponto's research interests include survivors and spouses' adaptation to cancer, international health, substance use disorder, education, and includes both qualitative and quantitative research methods. Dr. Ponto's clinical interests include palliative care, advanced directives, oncology, quality and safety, and improving oncology care. Dr. Ponto has research or clinical collaborations in healthcare internationally, including Japan, Czech Republic, New Zealand, and Brazil, and has an international travel study program for graduate education and nursing students in New Zealand. Dr. Ponto is past president of the Oncology Nursing Certification Corporation, was recognized as Advanced Oncology Certified Nurse of the Year by ONCC, and was the first adult gerontology certified clinical nurse specialist in Minnesota. All right, with that, I'm going to turn it over to you, Dr. Ponto.
Great. Thank you so much. I'm so happy to be here today. Thank you for the invitation. I am going to share my screen with you so that I have prepared just a few slides. Again, just really want to thank you for inviting me to this group. I hope those of you at the Country Club had a nice lunch, and welcome to those of you on Zoom. Are you seeing my slides okay?
Yes.
Yes. Okay, super. Thank you so much. So I was asked today to come and talk a little bit about some of the connections we have globally and internationally at WSU Rochester. So as you heard, I'm in the graduate program in nursing in Rochester. I teach nurse practitioner students, clinical nurse specialist students, nurse leaders, and nurse educators. And so it is really my pleasure to talk about one of my passions, and that is global health and international initiatives. And so we have a number of faculty who are involved in various ways internationally. And I have a number of collaborations. So I took the privilege of sharing some of my collaborations, but I also wanted to acknowledge my colleagues who also travel abroad and have influence internationally. We have academic collaborations. We conduct professional practice activities in countries around the world. Some of us have served on medical missions or service missions, and we've been to professionally to places including Cuba, Haiti, Panama, Japan, New Zealand, Spain, and Brazil, just to name a few. If COVID taught us anything or is teaching us anything, it's really that we are interconnected. And so we around the world, and we really value at Winona State our connections globally, internationally. We also know that we're preparing graduates who will work in a diverse workforce. And so we want to do what we can to help prepare our graduates for diversity in the workplace, not only potentially working or serving internationally, but also working with individuals and serving individuals who come from diverse backgrounds right here in the US. So I'm just going to focus on a few things. I have limited time, and so what I'm going to do is give just a bit of an overview of some of the countries that I've been involved in, and I'm going to give you a little bit more detail on one research initiative and one academic initiative. But just to cover a few different activities that and collaborations that we have is one is in Panama, where we have a clinical practice collaboration where we have compared our oncology nursing practice across clinical sites in each country, and we share best practices. So it's really a wonderful way to have professional collaboration and talk about practices given our differing resources, but how we can standardize practice regardless of the practice site. Another opportunity has been in Spain, and that too has been focused on an oncology practice consultation, and a couple of sites there I worked to address safety and quality issues, particularly in the chemotherapy and immunotherapy infusion areas and interventions for individuals and families with cancer. And so, you know, as you may know, cancer is a a serious illness, and treating cancer often involves significant drugs and medications that can cause serious side effects. And so safety is a paramount concern for both the recipient of the chemotherapy and also those that are handling, preparing, and administering the chemotherapy. And so you may or may not know that there are actually national and international standards for safety and quality of infusions. And so it's been my pleasure to go to a number of places around the world to impact and help practices improve their safety and quality of chemotherapy administration so we can ensure the best outcomes for patients and families. And then Brazil has been one of my largest collaborations. I have both, I have practice, research, and academic collaborations with Brazil. And it's been my pleasure to return to Brazil probably 7-8 times over the past several years. And in my practice collaborations, I have again focused on primarily on cancer care and working in the number of practices in Brazil. Brazil has a private and public model of care, and there are some significant gaps and discrepancies depending on whether you're in a private or public institution. And so we've worked in both settings of care, trying to improve access to care, standards of care in public settings where the resources are limited, and then also raise the bar even higher in private practice settings in Brazil, where the care is really quite similar to any westernized country. I also have some academic collaborations with individuals in Brazil, and I'll share one research collaboration. We've worked also on our sharing our curriculum and discussing nursing curriculum at both the undergraduate and graduate level, which has been really fun to do. And now with technology, we've been able to collaborate even easier using WhatsApp or Zoom or that sort of thing. And then again, also numerous clinical connections. So I've had the opportunity to visit a number of healthcare centers in mainly the states of Sao Paulo and Rio, and a few others scattered around. There's a lot more places in Brazil that I'd love to travel, so hopefully someday. And so we've had a number of opportunities to collaborate. Sao Paulo is the largest city in Brazil, and they have a population of over 20 million. So there are lots of treatment centers, hospitals, various healthcare organizations in Sao Paulo alone. So just to talk about one or two examples of some of our international research collaborations. I have a collaboration with a academic researcher in Sao Paulo, Dr. Ivani Borello Lopez de D'Amico, and I met years ago at a conference that we were both attending, and we connected, and we've had a number of really exciting initiatives that we've been involved in. And so we right now have a research initiative in cancer symptom management, primarily housed in Sao Paulo. And so we're working to improve the symptom management of individuals with cancer. And then we also have the academic practice initiative for both the graduate and undergraduate students. And this has particularly been exciting because Dr. Ivani has been able to come to the US also several times, and we've met up here in the US, and she's actually won some professional awards based on her work. So it's been really rewarding to work with her. And she's at the Federal University in Sao Paulo city in the state of Sao Paulo. And then another research initiative that I've been working on with other Brazil collaborators and also some nurse researchers at Minnesota State Mankato just this past year has focused on nurses' experiences caring for patients and families during COVID. And we wanted to compare and contrast the experience in Brazil and the US and see what similarities and what differences might exist. And so We know that the experience of frontline nurses during COVID pandemic has caused quite a lot of physical strain, psychological strain, stress, uncertainty, and it's been emotionally traumatic for all involved, patients, families, nurses, all caregivers. And it's resulted in quite a significant threat to our vulnerability. And so we were concerned in the Department of Graduate Nursing about the demands placed on nurses during this pandemic and their ability to provide the best individual and family nursing care during this extraordinarily stressful time. And so we thought a good beginning was to really understand the nurses' experience as they've lived it the past year and a half. And so we wanted to focus on Brazil and the US because they've had, they're two countries with the highest mortality rates. Earlier on, we also had the highest incidence rates of COVID, but India has snuck in. And so US and Brazil still, however, have the highest mortality rates from COVID. And so we wanted to examine nurses' accounts of being on the front lines during COVID. What was their experience in trying to provide optimal care to individuals and their families, again, in Brazil and the US. And so for this study, we used a qualitative phenomenological approach and conducted interviews with nurses in both countries. What we have found is that there has been a rupture in family nursing care during this time. It probably doesn't come as a surprise to any of us. We've been isolated from each other. We've been restricted from visitation, and that has had an impact on the level and the ability to provide family nursing care that nurses and all health care professionals really value. We've also found that the experience of providing care during this time has often for nurses been a lonely and somewhat silent experience. Often the nurses are the only ones that are in patient rooms. And we had participants from all types of care settings. So acute care, long-term care, home care, and across the board and in both countries, nurses said that, they were really truly feeling like they were out there on the front lines. And interestingly, to all of us, there were a lot of comparisons between terminology that is often used in war type settings with the terminology that nurses were using. And so, obviously very different experiences in many ways. There were some similarities in terms of, feeling like alone and having difficulty talking about the experience. That said, nurses still felt like they were a bridge and sometimes even a substitute for family members. As visitation was restricted in most settings, and in some settings we're kind of going back to that, unfortunately, with the surge. And so in those times, the frontline nurses really stepped up and acted as a bridge and a substitute family member. Not that we can ever fully substitute for a family member, but the intimacy of emotional connectedness, psychological connectedness, in addition to the physical care that nurses typically provide, was really important and really valued. And especially with the high mortality rate that we had with COVID, nurses really value being with people at end of life. And so they were stepping up and serving in that capacity during that time. And as a result of all of the demands, the nurses expressed feelings of fear, vulnerability, and uncertainty. And it was interesting because nurses talked about having felt that those kinds of feelings before in the workplace, but COVID was unique in that not only were they experiencing that in the workplace, but they were also dealing with the same kinds of fear and feelings of vulnerability at home because everyone was vulnerable. So that kind of put a unique perspective on the experience of COVID. So from this work, we have drawn a few conclusions and some implications for our continued work. One thing we found as we talked among our researchers from Brazil and the US, is that we really do have a shared perspective, and there is an interconnectedness globally, even though we're in very different countries. The nurses from both countries talked about the nature of providing care during COVID that was really very dynamic, required constant adaptation, and was extraordinarily transitory and changing. Nurses, however, despite all that was going on, were really tenacious in providing the best possible care, despite all of the threats they were experiencing, all of the threats that patients and families and coworkers were experiencing. And so despite this sort of unimaginable unpredictability in the environment they were, and the physical absence often of family members, nurses were still in the front line, stepping up, serving in that role, and often sacrificing their own health and well-being, which to me suggests that we want to support them in sort of what we hope is the aftermath of COVID. And then we also found that nurses really risked being overwhelmed due to the additional roles they took on, responsibility demands, and the emotions that they were feeling, and particularly the stress of participating in end-of-life care. So really some significant considerations that we are very grateful that we've uncovered, and so hopefully we can address. So we've, in our research group, come up with some implications that we think cross the board, that include research, practice, education, and policy. So we'll be taking, I think, some next steps to see what we can do to impact each of these areas. We've already at Winona State and our Department of Grad Nursing and our undergrad department have already been addressing family nursing education and increasing in our education curriculum even more issues related to self-care, stress management in a really intensive kind of job, looking at nurse empowerment, looking at policies. We're really questioning the role of visitation policies and understanding from a communicable disease standpoint the need for spacing and some isolation. We're also interested in exploring ways that we can foster more family connectedness despite infectious disease, communicable disease kind of perspective. So we're also looking at ways of including practice innovations in our curriculum and in practice. And of course, there's always more research to do, so we'll be looking at that also. So that just gives you a snapshot of one study that we're currently involved in. We've presented those results at 2 conferences already. We're writing up the results to submit for publication here in the next few months. Then I also wanted to emphasize how we include students in our activities, not only our scholarship, but also from an academic perspective. And so I just thought I'd talk a little bit about one of our study abroad opportunities that we have available to students. This opportunity happens to be for graduate students. We have a number of undergraduate student opportunities also. We've had a long history of study abroad programs in many of our departments at Winona State University. So this particular study abroad is a leadership and team development experience in New Zealand. And so a colleague of mine at WSU have offered this study abroad 3 times already in the past. And we actually had a group planning to go in spring of 20, so last spring, and got all prepared, went through the coursework, and unfortunately at the last minute, we kind of shut down and weren't able to go to New Zealand. Our trip was planned for the end of February and into March of 2020. So that was right when COVID was ramping up. And of course, New Zealand being an island, they're very protective. They're protective of their island in the best of circumstances. And when COVID started appearing, they were very concerned and closed things down. And of course, we closed things down out of concern for our students and faculty. But we're hopeful that, and we're planning to offer this again next spring, and very hopeful that we'll be able to offer this program. And despite what we're hearing and seeing in terms of COVID numbers. So I thought I'd just talk a little bit about this initiative. And so this study abroad involves 2 courses for students. And again, these are graduate level courses for leadership students in our College of Education, and then also nursing students in our College of Nursing and Health Sciences. And so all students participate in a leadership and team development course where they gain more knowledge and skills on best practices for leading teams. So we talk about things like conflict management, developing your team, team leadership, leveraging their own individual strengths, and of course, communication. And then the second course is about the leadership immersion. So then they take that content, that knowledge, and apply it in a completely different setting than what they're often used to. So we take them to New Zealand, and they interact with individuals in New Zealand. We have content about global issues in the class and dimensions of leadership across cultures, the importance of culture and context in organizational development. And then they go out and they meet with individuals, usually in leadership roles in various organizations in New Zealand. So we have them set up these organization visits before they even arrive in New Zealand. And we've had students meet, these are leadership education students and nursing students. So they meet with individuals in universities, faculty, program leaders. They meet with school leadership in levels of education. They meet in healthcare institutions. They go to nonprofits. We have one really great experience that we got connected with a couple trips ago, where there is a food bank essentially, and an individual in New Zealand has structured a program where they go and collect extra food from restaurants kind of at the end of the day, and then they have a kiosk and basically give away food to individuals who are in need. And so our students connected into that a couple trips ago, and now we've incorporated that experience for all students. So it's a really wonderful way to give back to New Zealand, not only meet our needs in terms of our interest in being there, but also give back to the community, participate in the community. The students love it. They really have fun doing that. So usually we take the students to 3 cities. It's a 2-week trip in the spring. And so we've gone to Wellington, being the capital of New Zealand. It affords us the ability to go to some of the government institutions, government centers. We go to the Parliament and Supreme Court, and then there are a number of attractions that we can expose the students to while we're in Wellington. This coming year, we plan to go to Queenstown. We haven't been there with the students before, but Queenstown, some of you probably have been there. I know this group is pretty well traveled. And Queenstown claims to be the adventure capital of the world. So great for Midwest students who love to be outside and really partake in a lot of outside kinds of activities. And we hope to be going on a tour of the Milford Sound while we're there, and really enjoying those kinds of activities. And then, of course, we also go to Auckland, being the largest city in New Zealand, and that affords us some opportunity to see other institutions in the large city. We also have a collaboration with the University of Auckland, and we do an intensive 1-day leadership experience with their innovation center at the University of Auckland. So that's a really fun opportunity and activity for our students in Auckland. So that's a little bit of an overview of example of a study abroad opportunity for students. And then I also wanted to just briefly mention another significant part of our work and our service to the community is that we have international students attending our school. So, it's not only about going out, sometimes it's supporting from within. And so we really enjoy a diversity of our student body at Winona State. And so we have diverse graduate students. We actually right now have students from the continents of Africa and Asia. We have a student from India and have had European students before. And so we really appreciate and foster a international student body. We've moved to a more holistic admissions process in our graduate program. So we are intentionally interested in drawing diversity in our graduate programs. And so we have expanded our academic support for international students. It can be very challenging to not only to immigrate to a new country, but then also go to school, and especially graduate school. And so we're quite intentional about providing academic support. And for our students in particular in the Department of Grad Nursing, they often need to be working also. And so we support that activity and both academically, professionally, so that they can build their skills while they're here. And all of this is a value to us because we want to grow a diverse workforce. And we know that diversity fosters innovation, and we're excited about that. So those are just a few of our international global activities that relate to global health. Again, we really believe that we are a connected society globally and internationally. We are immersed in many global initiatives. We value those initiatives. We value having diversity here in our own community. And we have lots of other initiatives that we're involved in, but this was just sort of a representation of some of the activities. So with that, I am more than happy to entertain any comments or questions or input from you all.
So this is Audrey. I just have a question. So how many students do you currently have in your nursing program, and how many of them are international students?
Oh, good question. So in our Department of Graduate Nursing, we have, I'd say ballpark 350 students. And we have graduate programs. I think I mentioned we have 3 nurse practitioner programs. So psych mental health nurse practitioner, family nurse practitioner, and acute care nurse practitioner. We're one of the few acute care programs in the state. Then we have an adult gero clinical nurse specialist program, 2 nurse leadership programs. So for graduate degree prepared nurses who go into more formal leadership roles. And then we have a nurse education track and program. And so the percentage of international students, I would say somewhere between 8-10%, somewhere in there. So, low, we'd like it to be higher. But we are trying to increase and grow our international diversity. It might be higher in undergrad, and it might be different in other programs. I'm not really sure of those numbers, but yeah. Okay. So we're working on it and hoping to grow. We've actually had some really fun opportunities with international students over the years. We've had students who I remember 2 students who we had completing a clinical project and for their doctoral degree, and one of them was from Africa. And so they worked in a pair to go back to Tanzania and develop some nursing education and some, I think it was kind of home care programs in Africa. And so they actually traveled over to Africa a few times with faculty to implement that program. So we really try and take advantage of the opportunities that we have and grow those opportunities to, my first experience internationally from a work perspective was during my graduate school experience at University of California, San Francisco. I went to the Czech Republic and helped them set up a blood and marrow transplant program, and it was life-changing. And I know that for myself, and I've heard that from others and from our students. So we really desire to offer those kinds of life-changing experiences for our students.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Do you want to come up, please? Yeah.
I was gonna put the camera.
I enjoyed your sharing the experiences that you've had with your students, but these travels and this kind of research, teaching and education and all those different components, where are your major funding sources for this? You know, these are not covered by tuition, we know.
Right. Yeah, great question. And to be honest, most of our faculty activities are, we have a little bit of grant funding here and there. We don't have any large grants, unfortunately. That would be awesome. But so most of it is covered on faculty, their own time, their own commitment, their own travel. Sometimes there might be an international grant where the travel might be covered, but otherwise it's really out of the goodness of faculty's professionalism. And again, there's some smaller grants that periodically support. In terms of the cost to students, so they pay tuition, like for a study abroad program, like the New Zealand program, they would pay tuition for the classes. And then there's I think a quite reasonable additional cost for the travel, the lodging, that sort of thing. And we're fortunate in that we can often get, low cost lodging. We do things like, in New Zealand, they have really quite lovely hostels that we stay in. And so, we do things to keep the cost down. But yeah, so funding's always a challenge. We do what we can, and we're always looking for more sources of, support, financial support to try and do more.
I can't see the chat. Is there something?
Yes, it looked like VP Gagnes got the stats for me. Thank you so much. So 12% students of color in graduate studies at Winona State. So 12%, even higher than my guess, my estimate.
Doug, you want to come up here?
No, you can repeat my question.
Okay, I can do that.
Okay, first is the issue of vaccinations for nursing people.
Oh, so the first question is vaccinations for nursing.
Oh my goodness, you hit that complicated nail on the head. Yes, so we're just starting back for fall semester. Students started on Monday, and faculty have been and our administrators have been working very hard over the summer to get guidelines in place. And then of course, everything is changing now as we're entering into fall. So Dr. Gagnes, make sure I reflect this correctly, but we don't require vaccination currently for students, but we do require testing if not vaccinated. So if they're vaccinated, they could basically avoid weekly testing. Thank you so much, Julie, appreciate it. And then there's the issue of our students who are in clinical sites. And so that is changing daily, and we are working very hard to ensure, we must ensure that our students are following the guidelines of the clinical site that they will be in academically. So we have students in our graduate nursing department in, probably, I don't know, 150 clinical sites any given semester. So we're tracking all of those placements. Some of our clinical sites are requiring that students have vaccinations. Some are requiring testing in lieu of vaccination. And so it's really an individual sort of requirement. Whatever the clinical site where the student might be placed is requiring is what the student has to abide by. And then, of course, we have screening mechanisms in place for students, symptom screening, that sort of thing. In terms of our teaching, we have gone to, high flex, hybrid. We've had a long history of teaching at a distance, and so it's not so new for many of us. We're doing more of that, and then limiting our simulation and making sure that we have a safe environment for all involved. So yeah, it's really quite complex, but we're prepared for it again. At least it hasn't caught us off guard this time. We've been through this before, so we know how to handle it to keep people safe.
Doug, your next question?
How about just extrapolating it to the countries that they, been studying and interacting?
Oh, yes. Oh, sure. So taking an international perspective. Thank you. Yeah. So that too is something that we, we're responsible to have in place a plan for safety for all of our students. We're part of the Minnesota state system, of course. So there are system-wide requirements, and for any travel study abroad program, we adhere to the CDC recommendations. So when immunizations are required for international travel, then we do have to require those for our student travelers. And so we track all of that. We track the warning level of each country. And right now we're in a travel hold for students because of COVID. And so that's why we're a little uncertain whether we're going to go ahead with whether we're going to be able to go ahead with the New Zealand program next February and March. But yeah, so we would adhere to all of the immunization, the safety. We actually have some content in our immersion course for our New Zealand travel study, where we go over health issues. And we have the fortune of teaching graduate nursing students, so they're quite used to all of these health issues, and we help our colleagues in the education program feel a little safer traveling. And nurses are good travelers. They usually have a first aid kit with them and lots of treatment and remedies along.
Doug, did you have another question? Okay. Other questions?
I
Yeah.
have one. Ratio of male to female in the graduate nursing program, or even
Okay.
undergrad.
So the question is, what's your you said gender? Yeah. Male to female in your program, the graduate program.
Yeah, good. So we're pretty proud of our percentage and proportion of male students. We have a number of male students in our grad nursing department. It probably varies by programs. So we have a number of males in our acute care nursing program and our family nurse practitioner program. Right now, I've got a clinical group in my clinical nurse specialist program of 10, and one is male, so 10%. Overall, I would have to ballpark again. It's probably somewhere around 5 to 10% overall. But we're having, again, growing interest. Our acute care program emphasizes interventional procedures and intensive care units. We have a a student who is a flight nurse who is involved in trauma care. And so that subspecialty, I think, attracts quite a number of male nurses to that specialty. So yeah, so another area that we keep trying to grow and expand, but we do have a number of male nursing graduate students. I'm not sure what the numbers are with undergrad though.
I saw a new chat come up. I don't know.
It's more factual information.
Oh, okay. Okay. Sounds good.
She posted the CDC vaccination update.
Got it.
guidelines.
Okay.
Yeah, thanks.
I have one more.
Yes.
I'd like to invite Julie into Rotary membership.
Janine.
I heard part of that.
Yeah, Janine, you need to be talking to Julie. We would love to
I know
have-
I've met some of you along the way. It's I know you're a great group.
Well, thank you. So Dr. Ponto, thank you. And as a thank you for your presentation, a gift will be given to the Diversity Council in your honor. So
Oh, that's fantastic. Thank you so much. It's really been my pleasure. I so appreciate the invitation. Mhm.
as we close out today, I want to give thanks to all who assisted. Joel Hawk, our greeter, Bill Wichter for leading us in the 4-way test, and for John Woodruff at the visitors table and our Sergeant of Arms. And a special thank you to our speaker, Dr. Julie Ponto. Thank you all. Serve to change lives. We are adjourned.
Thank you. Thanks for all you do. Bye-bye.
Oh.